Okay, so welcome back. We have a special lecture today. We have the knowledge management as a supporting tool for the COVID-19 crisis mitigation. I am José Eduardo Storopoli from Nove. With me, we have Professor Gustavo Mesch from Haifa University. And we will also be taking questions. So send the questions to us with the Google Forms, and the best ones will be answered online in the end of the lecture. So with no further delongs, Professor Gustavo, the floor is yours.
Boa tarde, and good evening here in Haifa. It is really a very special moment to talk about knowledge management or knowledge mismanagement, because just 1 hour ago, the Israeli government has decided to close again 30 cities in Israel, starting on Monday, because we are in the middle of the second wave of the COVID virus 19. And actually, the speaking here is that in 2 weeks, might be that all the country will be closed again, all the cities, and we will be going to complete isolation. So what happens? How we reach this point? And I'm not going to mention issues of governmental mismanagement, but certainly something went wrong when we finished the first isolation and the country was open almost completely, and people got the feeling that we are over it. And then the rate of contagion has gone every week up and up and up. And now apparently it's going to close it. But certainly the strategy was wrong. And maybe we can try to change it in some way, thinking differently. And I'm going to use the framework of social networks. Some of you are familiar, and others may be less familiar. But one of the very interesting things in this methodology is that examine the connections between actors and not the characteristics of the actors, but the change that happens between actors in order to understand underlying social structures. So the focus is on the patterns of interactions between actors rather than just social attributes like age, gender, education, marital status, or locality. Always a combined set of actors and their relations. Actors are referred variously as nodes, vertices, or points, and relations are age, arcs, lines, or ties. I will use the word ties and actors. So this is the way that we look at the simple social network. We have a bunch of individuals that are interconnected. These relationships can be unidirectional, they can be mutual. We have people that are very highly connected, which means that in a very small network or large network, everybody is connected with others mutually. And there are other networks that they are loosely connected, which means that there are some links and there are people that are not connected, like the last one, the individual actor, that actually is connected to one member of the network. Between these two networks, you can see that there is one person or one actor that actually is connecting two different networks. And this is something very important, in particular when we think about the COVID virus and the spread of the virus. So actors can be individuals, can be companies, can be cities, can be neighborhoods. Ties are connections between two actors together. And the direction of ties can be that A likes B, B manages C, or A works with B. Everything is possible. There are different types of actors, as I mentioned before. You can see this graph. Actors can be neighborhoods, can be organizations, can be individuals, can be cities, and can be groups. The basic concepts are homophily, which means that it's a principle that is very well known that people contact with similar others, and that this contact with similar others usually occurs at a very higher rate than among dissimilar people. Homophily, which means that similarity is based on informal, formal, or ascribed status, can be based on race, gender, age, marital status, religion, and even political ideology. Value homology is based on values, attitudes, and belief. So this homophily, the tendency to get into contact with people that are similar to us, can be in terms of demographic characteristics or in terms of values and attitudes. Networks differ in the number of, in their size. There are networks that are large networks, there are networks that are small networks. Density, that is the tightness or connectedness of the ties among the actors, in a network is usually calculated by the proportion of ties existing in a network divided by the total possible number of ties that could be sent and received. And the strength, how strong is this connection between different actors? That is sometimes a measure of intensity, frequency of contact, or potency of the tie. Network position, there are people that are in the periphery, there are people that are the core of the network. Certainly the ones that are the core of the network are usually the most influential because they are the center of receiving and passing information to others. And centrality is the number of ties that a node has. Centrality is the immediate risk of a node catching whatever is flowing through the network, catching a virus, for example. There are different measures of degree centrality. You can see here a network that is actually very dispersed. You have a number of sub-networks inside. You have different degrees of centrality, as you can see, and it can be out degree or in degree, depend if the links go inside or go outside. Multiplexity is another characteristic of networks that is quite important in this perspective of the virus. Sometimes ties are associated not in a single context, but in various contexts. We can have ties that are associated with work, like co-workers, but at the same time we can have networks that the ties are connected with us, or the actors, because we go to the same class, and also we hang out together at the bar, and also we go to the same gym, and also we participate in the same church. So multiplexity has been used in the literature in two contexts: role multiplexity, nodes occupy more than one position that ties them together. For example, people that run a family business, people are also kin and are also co-workers and are also friends. Or content multiplexity, that is having a given role relationship, co-worker. There are different flows between a pair of persons. They can provide advice, friendship, support, favor, and common tasks. A very central component here is the concept of bridge. Bridge play an important role in a micro or macro puzzle because these are the actors that actually connect two different networks or two different sub-networks. Bridges allow the diffusion of information between otherwise disconnected communities, and bridges bring otherwise distant communities together. A concept that is very, very important in terms of the spreading of virus, as we will see later. Here the coronavirus officially became a global pandemic. This is a virus that has rapid high transmissibility. severity and mortality rate, in particular among older individuals, and measures that were taken to prevent the transmission of the disease and to avoid these worst-case scenarios are of great importance because we don't have a vaccine, and we certainly don't have pharmaceutical solutions. So it has been said that individual behavior is crucial to control the spread of the virus, but actually it is taking a long list of avoiding measures that most of them are actually social avoidance in general. Of course, when you read about the virus, a lot of things that you read is what are the groups that are under a high risk, and you have a long list of definitions that refer to age, older people, that refer to different kinds of diseases that people have, pregnant women, etc. But actually, as this virus exists, it's actually, I will say that it's a social virus because it is communicated from person to person, from group to group, or from network to network. And the key of preventing the disease is probably manipulating the networks, isolating the networks, and doing steps to manage them. So if we take a social network perspective, people are more likely to interact with members of their social networks. This is the principle of homophily. Health and economic policies can affect the rate of viral transmission via person social networks versus population. And viral transmission over a network-connected population can proceed slower or faster, can reach a peak and transmission via uniform mixing. Let's take a network map. And if we look at this map, this is the map of a spread of a disease, of a virus. And it is a network map. You can see that there are different small networks here that are linked together. And certainly the eye takes the red circle there, where there is a person that is at the center of a big network. He is ill, and he's actually the person that, as you can see, is linked very closely to all the other networks. This person usually will be defined within a very dangerous person, because if we look at this person and see that he had the most contacts and probably he infected the most others, we might naturally jump to the conclusion this is a super spreader, but it's true. But it's not because any personal characteristic. It is because the position that he has in this network. The super spreaders have some magical power. No, they don't have. It is not the individual power to infect, it is their location in the network. And I want to show it again. Look at the location of this red circle in the middle. And it is because he's in a very central position of his network, but it's not only that, because in that case, he will only be spreading the virus to his network. But he's also linked, and is often in a very central position in other networks. So he's actually passing to them information, support, advice, and at the same time, he's present in all these networks together, so he's spreading definitely the virus. And one thing that you have to take into account, that at this point, all the things that we are speaking about is the type of connection. We don't know if he's young, he's old, he has other diseases, he has a very high immune system or a very low immune system. All what we know is that he's highly connected to his network and to other networks. He's very central for all of them. Now look at the role of the bridges. These figures show how many social circles were involved in the outbreak. The red oval shows the family friends of the index patient. These were his known contacts. And the other infected individuals, the black nodes, are not connected to each other, and thereof probably don't know each other, and may be members of different social circles, but these were the unknown contacts of the index. If it is these infected unknown contacts that take an infection to parts of the network where it is not active, there are other bridges between the small world clusters in human networks. So social distancing and isolation have been widely introduced to counter the virus. Adopting a social network approach, we can use distancing strategies designed to keep the curve flat and aid compliance in a post-lockdown world. These are homophily, seeking similarity across contacts, and strengthening communities via triadic strategies. So we take all these networks, and it is one single network on the left, and you can see we are taking out contacts. So the same network, if we take out some strategic actors, some strategic nodes, we can actually increase the social isolation of the network and probably reduce the spread of the disease. Let's take this example. Homophily helps to limit the network bridges. As you can see here, we have a number of networks that each one has only one connection to the others. We interact with those who are geographically proximate, so we can think about the different small networks as households in which one member of the household is going to the neighbor in the front. So this will be one step that we can take and will in many ways reduce the spread of the virus. A second step is more radical. As you can see, it is the same network, but we actually have taken out all the actors, all the links, all the ties that connect between them. In many ways, it's like saying to people, stay at home, you can interact one with the other with your family members, but don't go out and interact with your neighbors. Or we use it a lot in the workplace, in which we ask people not to interact face-to-face, so different departments of the same workplace, instead of interacting face-to-face, we ask them to interact by phone, so they don't meet each other face-to-face, and only the work group works together all the time. So if there is a virus coming in, it will infect only this department and not all the workplace. And the most radical activity that we can take is actually to say, even inside every department in our workplace, we will allow only to no more than 2 co-workers to interact, and the others will close the door, will not interact, and will interact only by phone. So the isolation here is increased. So these are some of the thoughts that we can use to face the virus and to use some knowledge from social networks to apply to reducing the risk of the virus.
Okay.
And I will stop here.
Okay, thank you, Professor Gustavo. Let me see if we have some questions. We are still receiving questions. If anybody wants to ask a question, now it's the time. There is a Google form link that was sent to you, so that you can send us your questions. So I have a question, Professor. You showed us a lot of techniques, mostly under the umbrella of social network analysis. Do you currently have if you can disclose to us, do you currently have knowledge if the government of Haifa or the government of Israel is using specifically one of those techniques or one of those metrics?
Not really at a very detailed level. They are using the concepts. The concepts, for example, of closing cities. That is actually very interesting to discuss because the major of the cities say, you're going to close now 30 cities, but the rate of disease is not evenly distributed in the city. There are neighborhoods that are infected, and there are others that are not infected. So actually what they are doing, the majors, is without knowing probably, they're saying, listen, let's take all the network of the city, let's visualize the areas or the networks that are infected, and let's isolate them instead of isolating all the city. But in many ways, when you make a decision of isolating a city and not allowing people to go out or go in, you are actually implicitly using a very rude way social networks.
Yeah, I actually understood that there is kind of a myopia in seeing, in observing that the actor is the city. No, the actor is the individual, and it's like a it's like a sub-level of the observation. And then you have like a nested structure with city, neighborhoods, families, apartments, and people. Yeah. And if you kind of expand or enhance the granularity of the analysis, you go more levels below the unit of analysis, you can get a better grip or the understanding between the actors and the network. Is that so?
One example, yes. And one example, or more clear example of the use of network is what we are doing at the university. The government decided that at the same time, not more than 30% of the workers can be at the university. So in my office, what we have done, we have divided the workers in 3 groups. So we have one group coming Sunday, Monday, and the other days they are going home and working from home. And then they are being changed by another group that come on Tuesday and Wednesday. The other days they work at home. And then another group that is coming on Thursday and Friday. And we don't mix these groups. So it is a kind that it's a kind of using the network, deciding that we are dividing the entire office or the entire workers in 3 different networks, and we isolate them. And they work together so they can infect each other, but they cannot infect the other 66% of the workers that are not present the days that they are present.
I see. That's a clever one. Let me see if we have more questions. João, do you have a question?
Overall, it's much easier to use this network approach at the workplace where you can manage the networks that they are working.
Yes, I agree.
Well, I have a question, Professor, please. First of all, congratulations for your lecture. Thank you for the opportunity to learn more about it. And congratulations to Professor José Eduardo too. And my question is, it's a kind of more general question. It's not so specific about the theoretical analysis that you showed to us. It's more kind of a question about your opinion. So, based in your opinion and your point of view, Do you think the social isolation or the lockdown performed by some governments was an effective way to reduce the COVID contamination?
Very good question, because you cannot avoid, when you mention government, you cannot avoid a lot of political questions. And here comes the thing. One thing is the scientific approach that says, listen, when we have a kind of public health crisis, and we don't have vaccines, and we don't have drugs, the best way to do is to use social isolation. But then you have the governments, and the governments come and say, okay, social isolation, let's see what is the thing that they are serving us. So if we do social isolation, it's a big discussion here in Israel, so we have to provide any kind of social protest or not. Congregation of people protesting against the government, goes against social isolation. And there is a huge discussion going on in Israel, because in Israel every 2 days there are protests and manifestations against the Prime Minister, where 25 to 30,000 people come. And the government says that this is the way that to spread the virus, when in reality actually was the opening of the classes that started at the kindergarten and elementary and secondary school on September 1st. So there is, and we see, I think, in every place in the world, this clash between the advice of science that is, I would say, very balanced, and the way that the governments in every place are taking it for populism, for avoiding democracy, for taking it to other places. So I think that overall, social isolation has to be balanced and certainly discussed in democratic institutions. That is something that governments are preferring not to do because they have other interests.
Okay, thank you. We do have one question from our listeners, or spectators, more appropriate. Professor, do you believe that we will go back to normality, or will we live in a tension with fear of a new virus or a new COVID mutation? That is the question.
Actually, it is a double question.
From Edison.
The first question, if I believe that we will go back to normal, I guess that no. I guess that we are under a huge worldwide laboratory of experiments. Many things have happened now. For example, will universities go back to regular face-to-face classes as they used to be? Probably not. Will our exams will be the same as they were before? Probably not. Will conferences, international conference, will go back to be face-to-face? I guess that not all of them. So I think that there are many changes that have happened in the last 6 months that will change our patterns of life. For example, will tourism come back as it used to be? Will the skies be open all the time and people will really travel? I don't know. The second part of the question is whether I believe that are we going to be living in fear? So I will use the concept that already is out there, the concept of a risk society. And certainly, I think if we take together the concept of risk society and the concept of liquid modernity, I think that the both two concepts actually bring us to expect that we are going to live in much more uncertainty than before. A lot of social norms have changed and have become not solid but liquid. Let me tell you, for example, something very, very small. We used to be a very, very ordered country that every year has a budget, that every year the budget is approved by the parliament. We are now a country, and I think that it's quite interesting, that for 2 years we don't have a budget, a national budget. The budget of the government was not approved by the parliament, and there is no future that we will have a budget. Now, that was unbelievable that the country can actually continue the operations of the government without the budget that was approved by the parliament. And we are already 2 years, and there is a promise that in 100 days we will have a budget. And I know that they didn't start working on it. And if they don't start working now, it will not be in 100 days. So there are many things that were very, very stable that will not be stable anymore. So we are living in a risk society, and let me remind all of you and all of us that the coronavirus is not the first one. We already have been in the SARS virus, and we before that have been in the influenza, the chicken influenza virus. So every 3 or 4 years there is a pandemic going on in the world. This is the one that has taken the more countries than ever, but it's something that is going to be here. You know, virus exists, and it is like other things that we live them like terremotes. Terremotes, you can ask somebody in Chile if they will ever have a terremote again, and they will say to you that it is everyday life to have a terremote.
Yeah, okay.
And the good news is that humanity always knows how to cope. I don't have the answer how they are going to cope, but humanity also copes.
Oh, that's a great ending. Yes. We don't know. We always know that we will cope, but we will not know how. I want to shift some gears now. For those that don't know you, you are the president of the Haifa, of the University of Haifa, and the rector. Yes, that's the official title. The rector of the University of Haifa, and we from Brazil see Israel as an exponent of technology and of social integration, or more or less a technological integration, a nice interface between industry, government, and academia and university. How do you see it through the lens of the knowledge management? And do you have some lessons or some mistakes that were done in Israel that for a country or a society that wants to move forward in knowledge management and integrating better the industry and the research and the university and the preparation of the future professionals? Do you have any advice or any insights for the listeners?
Yes, I think that I will start saying that before we start speaking about the integration between government, universities, and industry, the thing that we need to make is a big cultural change. We need to educate people for innovation, and in every field. We need to educate our students in being creative, in thinking, and searching all the time to create something that is new, something that is different. In any field, not only in the fields of computer science or information systems, but also in the social sciences, in the humanities. Think differently, try to make a good idea that is completely different of all the ideas that were before. And I think that was the ground, the cultural ground for the innovation. For whatever reason, when I look, I am able to look at the society from outside, to the Israeli society from outside, because all of you know that my name comes from a Latin American country, so I was born in Argentina. So sometimes I can take my glasses out and to look from outside to the Israeli society as a stranger, as a foreigner, not only as a native. And when I look from outside, what I see is people that all the time are thinking, when they get to a position, what can I do differently? What can I change here? How we can grow here? And I think that it's a cultural thing that is very, very strong to everybody who will reach any position. His goal is to make things differently, to do something that is different, a new idea, a new project, something that was not done. Then the issue of integration is certainly difficult to work, but this is possible. And I think that today, companies almost in every country are looking for new ideas to develop. It used to be the case that universities have the monopoly of research and development. Today, I think that also big companies are looking for research and development. So this a joint venture, looking one for the other together, can bring also the government. The government is usually the last one to come in. But when they see that there is a collaboration between the universities and the industry, then they make the step forward. And one thing that I will always suggest to universities is to create a unit of interface between the university and the industry, so that you can, as a university, commercialize new ideas and try to enter the dialogue with the industry, with university ideas. We, as a universities, are places in which we are creating knowledge all the time, new knowledge all the time. And some of this knowledge is very useful to the industry, and it's very useful to the government. So we have to reach out with our ideas and try to sell them to the industry and the government. And one way to do that is to create a company that does the commercialization, because then the company can be a bridge between the industry and the university.
Great answer. Thank you. There is another question, and it's from Elisandra, and she's asking, what trends and opportunities can we observe? What sceneries and challenges need our attention?
Can you tell again the question? I didn't really understand it.
Okay.
What are the challenges?
The challenges and what context and challenge needs attention. What are the trends and opportunities that we can observe, and what challenges and context need attention?
Okay, I think that we are in time of transition in which many things are out there, but it's a result of a kind of improvisation. At some point, I think that after 6 months of the coronavirus, we can look around us and there are a lot of new things that actually were not planned, are the result of improvisation. And we need to look at them again in detail and see what are the limits, what are the challenges, and also what are the opportunities. For example, one of the things that I'm looking back is all the process of implementation of the online learning. And when most of us have adopted Zoom, but we all know that Zoom is very good for a meeting of 2 or 3 people, like Skype. But then when you are facing a class of 60, 70 students, you actually don't see them. So we can look back and think, taking advantage of the major use of synchronic learning, how we can improve it and make it happen really, because there are many, many challenges involved in the pedagogy of online learning. That's, for example, one thing that we can do. Other things, and I think that's an important challenge and opportunity, is to look back at the process of behavioral change. The coronavirus, the social isolation has produced in a very short time a huge change in our behavior, in our social behavior, all over the world. And we have to look at this process of change, how it was achieved, what has remained stable, and what has become unstable. For example, to mention one thing, I think that the issue of fear that you indicated before can be divided in 2 things. One is the emotional fear, the real fear, and the other is the cognitive evaluation of our risk. And for example, one of the things that I believe that we have learned is that these 2 concepts when they go together, then they produce change. But when they don't go together, they actually reverse change. For example, if you only fear to be ill, but you evaluate your risk as very, very low, probably you will not comply with social distance. Because you see, yes, you are afraid of being ill, but you know that your risk is very, very low because in your network, in your city, nobody's ill, and the ones that are ill are not seriously ill. So you start behaving differently. So there are many, many opportunities if we look around. In terms of political science, what is the meaning of democracy today? Vis-a-vis 6 or 7 months ago, how governments has changed. What is the role of bureaucracy? Is still bureaucracy very stable and very important, or ministers today are taking decisions without the bureaucracy that are actually the ones that have the tradition and the history and the knowledge? We speak about knowledge management, but we know, in every place a minister comes and goes, but the ones that really manage the acknowledgement are the bureaucracy. What is the role of the bureaucracy today? For example.
Okay. João, do you have any questions over there?
Yeah. I have one more question. And Professor, recently some vaccines, new vaccines, are being noticed by newspapers and internet sites or stuff like that. And we have Russian vaccines, Chinese vaccines, I think British vaccines, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And here in Brazil, we are having a discussion about the real obligation to which people take this vaccine. And some people says no, I'm not obligated to take it because it's my health, it's my body, and I do whatever I want with my body. And so if I don't want to take it, I will don't take it. And other peoples are saying no, you must take it because when you take the vaccine is a question of national health security. So you don't have individual rights about it. So in the end, it's looks like an interesting discussion, and I would like to know about your opinion about this issue. What do you think about this new paradigm? Take or not the vaccine?
Well, you are saying something that is very, very important. I was reading yesterday a very interesting article in The Economist. Let me see if I find it. But if I find it very fast, it will be interesting to see it. No. Okay, never mind. I think that one of the central issues facing today the world is what is called vaccine hesitation. People hesitate to take any vaccine. And the article that was mentioning before, that I was reading it yesterday, showed a graph of a world survey on the willingness of people of taking the vaccine at the time that the coronavirus will have a vaccine. And the percentage is very low all over the world. I mean, in particular, there is a clear linear relationship between GDP and not taking the vaccine. So the higher the GDP, the percentage of people in the population that says that they will not take the vaccine is higher. We have seen that in the last years. We have seen a recurrence of measles, a recurrence of other diseases that were already eliminated because there is a trend not to take the vaccine that is not based very much in medical experience, but is based very much in hesitation because it is an intrusive measure, because some people are afraid of the side effects. And we have seen it also in influenza. The percentage of people that take the vaccine for influenza, and there is a vaccine every year, it doesn't go up. It is usually the older people that are being advised by the doctors to take it because they are the risk population, but the general population doesn't take. Which means that every time that I read that we are very close to get a vaccine and that will solve the problem of the world, I'm very pessimistic about that. People are doing, companies are doing a lot of effort, but I think that will be a new war on trying to convince the population to take the vaccine. It is not clear-cut, and I think that has to do, again, with the concept of a liquid modernity in which people think more about themselves than about the collective. What is good for me, what is good for my happiness, and not what is good for society. And it is a trend that we are seeing that. You can see that something is changing over the years in society, that we have less social groups, we have less real political parties with party meetings and party centers, and we have more individuals that are running the countries. And people, because all this individualism that is coming up, think about their personally and not about the benefits for society.
Okay, great answer. Thank you. I'm afraid we only have 5 minutes left,
Thank you so much,
we must leave the room for the next section. And Professor Gustavo, thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for your lecture and for your answers. It was very nice to talk about it with you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Professor José Eduardo, too, for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me. Thank you. See you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.